Hey guys, Gnoblar here. This video is just following up to a comment I posted on one of GeneralSplatton's recent videos where he took us through three of the basic paints, the basic metallics in the Vallejo Model Air range of paints. So this the video was brilliant, and it took us through the general's thoughts on a silver, I think it was a brass or a rust colour, and Vallejo's gold. And he showed us the consistency and that it was brilliant, and they flowed really well. There was no clumping, and it really gave a nice sheen because the particles in the paint, for anyone that doesn't know, there are actually small flecks of metal in metallic paints, and basically the smaller you get those filings of metal or particles, the kind of smoother the paint would look and the finish of the metal. If you had just massive chunks of small stones of metal and you tried to paint that on, it'd look rubbish. So the finer you can get the particles of metal, the smoother it is. And in the Vallejo Model Air, because you're trying to shoot the paint through a really thin nozzle in a paintbrush, in an airbrush, sorry, the particles are tiny, so it really does flow very nicely. So it was looking like glowing review from General on his video until he got to the gold, and I'll show you why. I'll recap. So the gold that the General reviewed was this one, and quite rightly so. He pointed out that although the consistency was brilliant, as with all the paints in the set, it's brown. It's a browny, greeny, silvery, shiny colour. It kind of looks a little bit like gold. And I'd definitely make some use of this on some. There's quite a lot of glare, sorry, on some of the figures that I'll end up painting, but it's not going to replace the golds I'm already using, the very kind of bright, shining golds that we're used to from the likes of Games Workshop. It's dull, it's green, it's brown. Quite frankly, as a gold, I'm not impressed. So General and one of the other guys who wrote a comment and helped him out said that emailed Vallejo, and they responded really quickly and said, yeah, we were aware of the problem, and the reason is because we use silver kind of alloys in the pigment. So all the metallic paints, rather than the silver ones being based on a silver alloy and the gold ones being based on a kind of brass or copper alloy to give it that colour, it's still based off silver. So they give it the colour with normal paint pigments, and that's why it looks like a brown silver, is because it is a brown silver. So just to kind of follow through my comment and help the General out where I can, I said I'd do a quick review of the metallics in the set that I got, because I said it's very convenient that he did his video, because that day I'd picked up my set to go with my new airbrush. So I'll help you out where I can, General. I'll show you all the metallics in this set. So we've got aluminium. That's aluminium, not aluminum. There's an eye there. See the eye? Woohoo! Yeah, sorry. That's come up before. So aluminium, that's basically a mithril silver. If I compare it to the silver that you reviewed, General, you might. There you go. You can see it's a slightly lighter than the one on the right. No, you can't. But yeah, trust me, it is. So whereas that's your, that might be your bulk of metal, that's your mithril silver. Moving across to a chrome, a steel. Those two are basically like a duller version, a bluer, duller version of these. So I would say this would be your base coat, and that would be your highlight. If you wanted a more dull silver, I would say. And then copper, which is a standalone one that doesn't really have a highlight colour, certainly in this range. You can see again that's very browny reddy, but again still based on a silver pigment. So moving across to, that's the gold that the General wasn't particularly happy with, and you can see why. It's almost like a vomit brown, not the best shine to it, quite dull. It doesn't really have many counterpart colours in here that you could use to highlight it, so you'd have to mix silver with it to further highlight, and that would just compound the problem. You'd be highlighting gold with with more silver, and whilst you can get a good effect from that, it's not brilliant. So that was the gold that General reviewed. There is a bright brass, which is basically this mixed with more silver already. So I don't think there's a good gold in here really to cut a long story short, General, to answer your question. It looks like we're waiting on Vallejo to get a shining gold equivalent out for the Vallejo Model Air range. So sorry I couldn't help you out. At least I've shown you what the range is, that as far as I'm aware, the ones that I've got. Like I say, these ones at the back are all flat colours, your reds, your blues, so the metallics are just these ones. So sorry I couldn't help you out, General. Thanks again for your video, really was helpful, because I've not had a play with these yet properly. Hope you're doing well. Good to hear from you and see more vids coming from you. Take care, and if you do hear anything about Vallejo knocking out a better gold, give us a poke, I'd like to know. Thanks very much. Cheers, thanks again.